There is a rope that each of us begins to climb when we first encounter Bitcoin. But that rope isn't smooth, it's riddled with knots. These knots are not physical, they are mental. They are the tangle of assumptions we inherited from the old world, our trust in authority, our understanding of value, and our sense of control. Until these knots are loosened, no real ascent can begin. This is the story of three such knots, three questions that most people will ask, not out of ignorance, but out of a sincere desire to make sense of something they've never seen before. Questions that seem simple at first, but reveal layers of depth the further you go. Let's start where most skeptics begin. What if governments ban or destroy Bitcoin? It's a fair concern. We're conditioned to believe that institutions hold ultimate power, that if something becomes too disruptive, it can be outlawed, silenced, crushed. After all, haven't we seen it before? But what's rarely examined is the nature of power itself. Governments are not monolithic machines. They are intricate webs of individuals, people with families, careers, ambitions, and contradictions. Some act in good faith. Others are compromised. Most are simply surviving a broken system. The idea that such a structure can move swiftly, coherently, and globally to destroy a decentralized network is not just implausible, it's a misunderstanding of both Bitcoin and government. Bitcoin has no headquarters, no boardroom, no physical infrastructure that can be raided. It is a protocol running across a distributed network of no-decimal data centers, some in bedrooms, some hidden, some public. To stop Bitcoin would be to shut down the internet itself, to erase code from every hard drive, every memory, every mind. That's not enforcement, that's fiction. But even more revealing is the motivation behind such a move. If you truly understood Bitcoin as a speculative asset, but as a tool of financial sovereignty, would you destroy it? Or would you quietly accumulate it? The truth is, power adapts, and it hoards what it cannot control. Throughout history, the ruling class has always found ways to shelter their wealth. Bitcoin is no exception. In fact, it may be the most powerful asset they've ever encountered. Borderless, seizure, resistant, mathematically limited. The louder a politician denounces Bitcoin, the more likely they understand its power and fear its implications. But fear is only part of the story. There's another layer here, a more personal one. When someone asks whether Bitcoin can be banned, what they're often revealing is their own psychological reflex, a deep-rooted belief that value must come from permission, that money must be sanctioned, that systems require oversight. This isn't stupidity, it's trauma. We've lived our whole lives in a top-down world, a world where control equals safety. So when we see something that lives outside that structure, it feels like a threat. But what if it's not a threat at all? What if it's an invitation to trust not people, but principles, not promises, but protocols? This isn't just about currency. It's about consent. It's about the right to choose what holds our labor, our energy, our legacy. Bitcoin doesn't demand permission. It offers it. And in that, governments don't face a threat. They face a mirror. A mirror that reflects their inefficiencies, their inflation, their fragility. And as with all mirrors, some will turn away, others will stare. That choice defines the future. Because Bitcoin is not waiting for approval. It's growing, quietly, relentlessly, globally. And it has already outlived every obituary ever written about it. So the real question isn't, can it be destroyed? It's, what does its survival say about us? Question 2. But Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. We've heard it countless times, the refrain of skeptics, economists, even tech-savvy investors. They point to gold to its industrial use, its historical permanence, its tangible shine, and they ask, what can Bitcoin do? But perhaps that's the wrong question. Gold, too, was once a rock in the dirt. It had no value until someone decided it did. Its early appeal wasn't utility, it was beauty, rarity, resistance to decay. These are social values, not scientific ones. Bitcoin inherits all of them and then perfects them. It cannot corrode. It cannot be counterfeited. It does not rely on centralized vaults or permissioned access. And unlike gold, which still requires brute force to transport, Bitcoin can move across borders in silence, hidden in a brain, disguised in code. But let's go deeper. The most misunderstood aspect of money is this: value is not found in what something is, but in what it protects. Money is a story, a contract, a container of trust. And Bitcoin tells a different story than any currency that came before it. It doesn't promise yield. It promises freedom. It doesn't generate interest. It safeguards integrity. It doesn't inflate. It resists. This is not abstract philosophy. This is utility, just not the kind you can melt or mold. It's the utility of resistance, the utility of survival, the utility of knowing that your stored energy cannot be arbitrarily diluted by those in power. In a world drowning in paper promises, Bitcoin is a stone. And stones last. Those who dismiss Bitcoin's value often haven't needed it. They haven't lived under capital controls. They haven't seen their savings vanish overnight through devaluation. They haven't sent money across continents to rescue family. They haven't faced the choice between silence and dissent. To them, value is what Wall Street says it is. But to others, value is what preserves dignity in the face of collapse. Bitcoin is not a luxury. It is a lifeboat. And the more chaotic the seas become, the more clearly. Question 3. What if a better coin comes along? This is the myth of endless innovation, that if something was created once, it can be improved, versioned, forked, outcompeted. But Bitcoin was not created. It was discovered. It solved a problem as old as civilization: how to move value without trusting a middleman. And once that problem was solved, it couldn't be solved again. Not in the same way. Not with the same purity. Every new coin that emerges tries to be faster, shinier, more programmable. But in doing so, it introduces compromise, centralization, insider allocation, governance complexity, a team, a face, a weakness. Bitcoin has no face. And that's its strength. Its founder walked away. Its supply is fixed. Its rules are simple. Its change is deliberately slow. That's not a flaw, that's the feature. Because resilience doesn't come from agility, it comes from immutability. You can't outcompete gravity. You can't improve the wheel. You don't reinvent zero. And you don't outshine a discovery that already reached thermodynamic perfection in scarcity. The market may flirt with alternatives, but it always returns to trust. And trust, once earned on the deepest level, is nearly impossible to migrate. Bitcoin doesn't compete for speed. It competes for belief. And belief, like roots, takes time. Once settled, it endures. Where all this leads: at first, the questions seem technical, then economic, then psychological. Eventually, they become spiritual. Because Bitcoin isn't just a tool, it's a test. A test of whether we can imagine a system beyond rulers. A world where power flows from code, not coercion. A form of money that honors you not because of your passport or your score, but because you exist, and you chose to opt in. Bitcoin is not about escape. It's about remembering. Remembering who we are when there is no one left to give us permission. When value is not granted, but declared. And in that remembering, it quietly hands us a mirror. Not to reflect markets, but to reflect ourselves. Because the knots we try to untie in Bitcoin, they don't just exist out there. They exist in us. In the stories we were told, in the fears we absorbed, in the trust we misplaced. Bitcoin does not promise to fix those knots. It simply reveals them. And then it asks, are you willing to climb? Not to conquer, not to escape, but to become aware, to stand sovereign, to carry your own weight, to walk a path not paved by kings. but cut by your own hands. Every meaningful revolution begins not with weapons, but with questions. You've just asked 3. The first real steps have already begun. And though the rope stretches far above, disappearing into the unknown, you're no longer at the bottom. You're already climbing. And the truth? It isn't waiting at the top. The truth is found in the climb.